Listen, kiddo, I get it. I don't like the two-party system. I think our country's corrupt, and quite frankly, I don't want to vote for Biden. It feels like voting for a Republican. But I'm gonna do it. You want to know why? Because the alternative is a fascist. A fascist is a fascist. Maybe we can have the conversation about dismantling the two-party system when a fascist isn't running. Maybe we can do that later, kiddo. Champ. Chief. Maybe we can talk about it later.
Pretty clear America has a major mental health crisis to deal with. Welcome back, beautiful and amazing human beings. This is Okradowski of WeAreChange.org. And in this video, we will give you a full breakdown of the sickness that we can't even name. So we are going to be calling it the Cornholio sickness, which oddly now has the U.S. President Donald Trump being the major proponent of a vaccine for it, while Bill Gates, of all people, is literally casting doubt on it. We're going to get into that, as well as how Australia is becoming even more of a despotic, totalitarian hellhole than it already has been. That plus a lot more, all on this independent media organization that has to remind you that some science is just for sale. Yes, we're seeing a lot of ridiculousness out there, conflated as science, as we have headlines like this that literally say, speaking English spreads the Cornholio sickness more than other languages. Other top experts, quote, experts and scientists are taking it as far as to saying just shut up in general, since, of course, speaking also spreads the Cornholio sickness. A sickness that it is very political, since, of course, politicians and BLM protesters are exempt from it magically. Meanwhile, actual science coming from this Chinese virologist are being censored and covered up. And that's why, as an independent media organization shining a light on it, we get heavily censored, shadow banned, and are, of course, 100% demonetized. In response to that, we started to work with companies that I like and I personally use. One of them is SafePreparedAndReady.com. The link to this will be down in the description below. And they do gourmet, fancy, smancy, storable food that lasts you over 25 years. Now, of course, a bag of rice and beans could last you for a while, but if you're looking for something else, if you're looking for taste, and also something that you could potentially take on a major hiking trip with you, like I do, SafePreparedAndReady.com is the place where you should go to get some good storable food. I like this company. I use them a lot. I think you will too. That's why I have a partnership with them I've had for over many years now. And by supporting them, you also support us at the same time if you go through our specific referral link. The prices are all the same everywhere you go. And with the way this year's going, I definitely made sure to restock on my supply. Now, of course, we're seeing just absolute ridiculousness when it comes to the Cornholio sickness, and many people using this horrible, tragic event in order to personally benefit from it. They use it to push all sorts of agenda, all sorts of misnomers that are absolutely ridiculous. Telling people to stop talking, to only protest a certain idea, allowing one protest, not allowing another one. Politicians setting up rules that they don't follow themselves sets an extremely bad example for any reasonable, rational thinking individual watching all of this hypocrisy unfold. And obviously, we have a lot of mistrust and doubt of the official system, since, of course, they handled the Cornholio sickness absolutely tragically. There's still a huge question surrounding tests, which some people come back positive with, then they take a second test, they come back negative with it, vice versa. Still, everything is up in the air because the situation is very confusing. But so far, some of the, quote, official data is that India has now over 5 million cases of this. Ukraine is reporting daily new highs in deaths. And there are some reports alleging that there is a second wave already hitting Europe, all, of course, for Sweden, which, very oddly, if you look at the actual, quote, official data, whatever that may be, as of recently, we are seeing cases go up all throughout Europe, except for Sweden, which is the exception here, who, by the way, is recording its lowest number of cases and deaths since March of this year. And if we remember, at that time, they implemented a policy where, of course, they didn't lock down, they didn't make masks mandatory. Now, they implemented some restrictions, but of course, they received massive ridicule, especially from the establishment Western mainstream media, saying that they're going to end up butchering all of their citizens in a bloodbath of the Konholio sickness, and none of that happened. Actually, the opposite happened, and it's continuing to happen here, which makes you really wonder what's really going on here, as the number of new Konholio cases has been down per day in Sweden and is continuing to go down, while reports are coming in that it is going up everywhere else in the surrounding area, everywhere else where there was massive lockdowns, massive government restrictions and regulations, where Sweden absolutely had none of it. They didn't have to go through any of the pain and suffering like the majority of the world did, and still they're left unscathed by this sickness that many mainstream media folks were fear-mongering about, which raises a lot of researchers to conclude that as of right now, with the initial data that we have, that these lockdowns were absolutely a mistake and will end up causing massive human suffering on a scale far beyond this sickness. Now, if you remember, with this entire situation, we have always advised you to take the situation personally and to decide what is best for you depending on your own personal situation. Now, in the beginning of this, I definitely have taken the situation seriously for myself and have always said if the government gets involved, they will make it that much worse. And they have. One of the reasons I decided to take this situation seriously was, of course, the data and evidence that was showing that this sickness was man-made, something, of course, that I was called crazy for believing. News organizations were censored for even raising the possibility of this, just like Zero Hedge was. But still, there was a lot of convincing data showing that this was definitely not a natural occurrence, that this was a part of a man-made, probably gain-of-function research study that either accidentally or on purpose leaked from China. And now, on top of all the circumstantial evidence that we previously talked about, we now have a Chinese virologist that defected China and has published a report claiming that the Konholio sickness was made in a laboratory. Li Meng Yan is the virologist who fled Hong Kong because she said, quote, "I know how they treat whistleblowers, and there have been a large number of doctors, researchers, and even journalists in China who have been imprisoned for telling the world the truth about what was going on with the Konholio sickness." And according to this virologist, she's claiming that China knew about the Konholio sickness before it claimed it did. There's also a lot of data suggesting this. She says her supervisors ignored research that could have saved a ton of lives. There's also some evidence suggesting that as well. But also, we have some studies showing that months prior to the Konholio sickness, there was a large number of individuals going through, of course, the same symptoms as this sickness. There's also DNA evidence of people deceased showing that they actually had this sickness as well, way before any of the classifications, way before the mainstream media even knew that this sickness existed. So some of these claims that she is making have already been verified through other independent research, but yet again, this is still all preliminary data that there deserves to be a conversation about, but we won't be able to have that conversation on social media as, of course, the big tech monopolies are literally suspending this whistleblower's, this Chinese virologist account, and suspending it like her account was on Twitter. And now even Facebook is censoring the interview that she recently just did with Tucker Carlson on Fox News. And it definitely looks like the big social tech media companies are on the side of China, just like many other important figures in the mainstream American media that have been playing defense for China, something, of course, that the World Health Organization also does, as they have been proven to be absolutely flat out wrong on so many instances surrounding this particular sickness, and whether telling everyone it wasn't airborne or reversing that decision in July, telling people not to wear masks, then to wear masks. The level of duplicitous doublespeak that we have seen from the quote authorities surrounding the sickness is absolutely mind-boggling and should leave everyone scratching their head as to why we should ever trust any of these institutions or people. Even Bill Gates is having those specific questions. But before we get into Bill Gates, the reality of the situation is we, of course, have institutions that don't care about our well-being or our health. If they did, we would have a conversation about stress, about sleep, about proper diet, and, of course, vitamin D that is having tremendous amounts of impact fighting the Konholio sickness, and according to a lot of the preliminary studies, is showing that it is crucial to helping patients survive the Konholio sickness. You know, vitamin D that you actually get from nutritious food, that you could actually also get from supplements, but mainly that you get best from being outside. Yeah, that vitamin D. And ever since the conversation was never really about health, when it was about politicians exhibiting their control over you, I knew that something was absolutely wrong, as of course governments are taking this situation as an opportunity to gobble up as much power and authority that they can over your life. We have seen extreme measures already in places like Australia, where the police showed up at people's doors for setting up Facebook events, and now the government there wants to even implement more draconian measures where they literally want to pass a law where the authorities, the government, guys with masks and guns could storm your house, forcefully arrest you for, quote, being a conspiracy theorist and committing the horrible act of thought crime. Thinking differently than the government may end you up in jail because of a new proposed bill by the Australian government. I'm not kidding you. This is just more insane, totalitarian, overt oppression of people's speech, of people's ability to even think differently than the government. And if this doesn't scare you, I don't know what does, but it definitely seems like Australia is trying to set the blueprint for literally the New World Order and human oppression. And if it's not power that governments are pushing for, it's the jab, which is openly supported by U.S. President Donald J. Trump, that has already ordered the U.S. military as well as hundreds of millions of vials of this, quote, jab to be ready immediately at its fastest and earliest potential time frame. Just moments ago, Donald Trump tweeted, "The jabs are moving along fast and safely," as he plans on giving Americans the free Konholio jab for all Americans as early as January. And of course, this is a plan for every single American. The U.S. military is, of course, going to be doing this plan, as of course the Department of Defense already has a playbook in place that's working with the Pentagon to roll out these jabs all across the United States. A jab that, of course, has been rushed, and one that there never ever has been for this particular category of sickness ever. And I'm sorry, but I'm a bit skeptical of that, and I'm not the only one, as Bill Gates recently, in an interview with Bloomberg News, attacked the credibility of the FDA, the Food Drug Administration, claiming that it is, quote, no longer the world's premier public health authority, while also saying he doesn't trust the CDC as well, in a very surprising turn of events. Yes, Bill Gates is wondering whether the FDA could be trusted with the Konholio sickness jab. Now, mainly, we have to understand that Bill Gates' criticism is of Donald Trump and his presidency and the, quote, bureaucracy surrounding all of this. He specifically cites how the U.S. president was talking about the, quote, exaggerated benefits of blood plasma therapy with treating the Konholio sickness as one of the examples to why the agency is losing credibility. In essence, his argument is that you shouldn't trust Donald Trump, but you should definitely trust him, which I don't know. I don't think that's a good idea either, especially since, of course, this is the same Bill Gates that said he was pledging all of his money towards charity, but somehow tripled his wealth. Yeah, sorry, I won't trust one of the world's richest people who's known for being cutthroat in the industry, since, of course, if he really wanted to help the sick and poor dying kids out there, he would. With proper food, nutrition, shelter, not with a hypothetical jab that has been rushed that we still don't know the full ramifications of or the effects of. I'm sorry, but that's the common sense approach here. Now, again, we have to understand here that there's a lot of politics at play here. I wish there wasn't, since, of course, with politics comes a boatload of crap that is absolutely unnecessary, and we're engaged in a system that is absolutely filled with crap. Just like your sewer system, which now also might have a surveillance system looking for the conchoidal sickness. Whoever thought I would be saying that this year? Anyway, whether it comes to Bill Gates or Donald Trump, as we've been saying all year, skepticism is your best friend in 2020. The situation is in your hands on how you decide to take and respond towards it. Personal responsibility is a virtue that the government does not want you to have. That's why I would still be respectful towards people who are immune compromised and elderly. But whatever you do, whatever you possibly can do, do not give up your power and authority to the government that, of course, will grossly mishandle it. I mean, look what the government does with the DMV. You would think, with the way that the government institutes the DMV, that they shouldn't be trusted with anything. But somehow they are. The government's not the answer. Do your own homework, do your own research, and make the own decisions for you personally yourself. That's been my take on it. If you think I'm wrong, let me know why down in the comment section below. I usually answer questions within the first hour that a video is out. We had a crazy freaking year, and it's only going to get crazier. Strap on your seatbelts, and thank you for being a part of this ride with me. If it wasn't for you sharing this video with your friends and family members, if it wasn't for you watching until the end, I wouldn't be here. And the only reason I am is because of you. That's why. Love you guys. Stay tuned for more here on WeAreChange.org.